What's up, guys? It's San Diego. This is my first guitar lesson, so I hope it goes well, and hope you guys enjoy. And I'll be doing "If You Want Blood, You've Got It" by AC/DC, the best band in the world, and enjoy. Alright, so to start off, the intro for the lead guitar, Angus starts off by doing an A chord, so that is the A string open, the D, 2 on the D, and 2 on the G, and 2 on the B. And Angus just strums it once, and then Malcolm Young, he's just playing the riff. So they strum it at the same time, and then Malcolm Young continues, and the riff goes like this. So it's A, D, A, D, G, G, D. So the next chord is a D chord, and it's like your average AC/DC D. You're muting the high E string, 3 on the B, and 2 on the G, and the open D string. And you switch between, so it's A, D, A, D, and then G, and it's, like a G power chord, so 3 on the low E, you mute the A, and then you strum the open D and G, and then 3 on the B and the high E, and you strum it, so you strum the G, let it ring for a little bit, then you strum it again, and then you strum the D again. So Angus starts off with So Angus lets Malcolm play the riff. The riff's completely the same for both of them, I think. I could be wrong. But he lets Malcolm play the riff twice. He starts it with, the A and just cuts it. And then on the third time Malcolm plays it, Angus does the A that starts the riff at the same time, repeating the riff twice. So, and Malcolm, does the riff twice, and then does it again. And then on the 5th time, Angus lets the A ring. And then on the 6th time, same thing. But right when Malcolm's getting to that G, Angus strums again. It's kind of like a build-up. And then, the riff restarts. And then that 7th time, I think, the riff restarts, Angus really hypes up. And so that's the 8th time that Angus starts, joins in the riff with Malcolm. And then, they play the riff together. They play the riff together 8 times. And, those 8 times also, there's the vocals. And then after that, it's the chorus, which is pretty simple. Same chords, it's A, D, A, G, D. So, it's just, same chord shape. You got the A, and you're letting it ring the whole time. So, A, G, D, A, G, D. And, so I think that's 4 times. Well, no, not 4. 7 times I think you do the chorus riff, and then there's that one bit. Blood on the rocks, blood on the clouds. That bit. It's. If you want, you can speed it up. I don't really it. Sounds kind of sped up on the track, because Bones singing quicker. But I don't think the chords are sped up or anything. It's just maybe getting a feel. And then that last time, If You Want Blood. So it's 7. You do it 7 times, and then at the end, you strum the D. 4. No. Yes, no, my bad, 6 times. And then it goes back into the riff. So the riff repeats again 10 times for the second verse, and the first 2 times no vocals, and then the third time the vocals come in. Then chorus exactly the same. One difference is that little, ending bit of the chorus, that bridgy section, they strum it 12 times, my bad. And that leads us off into the solo. So, solo, it's not that complicated, there's a lot more complicated stuff, so it might be a bit hard for a beginner, but, any intermediate guitarist will get it easy, so it's basically just, bending 3 on the E. If you got a whammy bar, you use that. And then so you double stop at the 5th fret on the G and the B. So you strum them together. If you don't know what a double stop is, it's like in solos, you strum 2 strings together, make it like a chordy type sound. So you strum that B and the G and on the 5, and then you play the 7 on the D, and then another double stop at the 7th fret on the G and the B. And then you play that double stop at the 5th fret on the G and the B again. So I'll play it slowly again. Up to speed, it'd be like. And then next it's kind of like that like Chuck Berry style, but it's got that kind of vibe. You're sliding. Well, this is what it sounds like. So that's you're sliding into the 7th fret on the A string, and then you hit those double stops on the 5th fret on the G and the B twice, and you repeat that phrase twice. And then on the second time, you hit the double stops on the 7th fret of the G and B, but you bend it, and so that altogether sounds like. And then the next bit is a bit of pentatonic scale, that type of stuff. A minor, I think. It's so it sounds like. You can slow it down, like it is a bit slow on the recording, I think. So that is that's 5 on the high E, then 5 on the B, then 8 on the B, then that 5 again on the B. And then you can do a bit of a bend if you want on the 7th fret of the G string, then strum it again. And that's just 5 on the G, and then 7 on the D. And then after that, well, all together the solo should sound. The next phrase sounds like this. So all that is that you kind of slide into the 13th fret on the B, and then you do 2 bends on the 13th fret, whole step. So you do the 2 bends twice, and then you do 11 on the high E, and then 11 on the B. You repeat that like 4 times. And then after that, you well, altogether the solo should sound like this. And then after that, you slide into the 5th fret on the B, and then you play the 8. And then it's just, you know, going down the scale. So you play the 8, and then it's oh, that's right. Yeah, you play the 8, and then 7, 5. So 7 on the G, 5 on the B, and then 7, 5 on the G. And then 7 on the D, and then you hit those double stops on the 7th fret on the G and the B, and then you hit the 7 on the D again, and you hit this double stops on the 5th fret on the G and the B, and then you repeat that, you know, kind of like Chuck Berry style type thing. So that you repeat it more than before. I think like maybe 8, or you can like listen to the recording if you want. Get an exact number, and then around the end, maybe like that 8th or 9th or however many times you do this. So around like maybe the 9th time you hit the double stops at the G and the B, you hit them 3 times, and then you slide it again, and then you only hit them once, and then you hit the you play the 5th fret on the D 3 times, had a bit of vibrato, and then you slide up on the from, you know, that like 5th fret, you slide up on the G string, and then you do a full bend on the B. And while Angus is doing the solo, you know, Malcolm's just doing the you know, the main riff. And then, you know, at the end of the solo, he instead does this. Angus joins in after the bend at the 20th fret, and but the riff starts off for Malcolm's part. He starts off doing it, so it's A D A D G G G D. So it's basically, you know, the main riff, but you add a G, and you're also letting it ring. So. And it's a bit slow as well, so A, D, A, D, G, G, D. And then the second time you play it, so you just do A, D, A, A, D, A, and then you do this kind of like, I don't know, a lick or something. It's so you put your finger on the 2nd fret of the low E string, and then you strum in order from going lowest to highest. You strum the bottom strings, and yeah, so you do that. So that's basically just 2 on the low E, and then the A and the D open, and then 3 on the low E, and the A, E open. So that should sound like this so far. And then after that, you do a little bit of a bend on the 3rd fret of the A string. And then it just repeats a few times. But Angus joins in. Angus joins in at the second time that you're doing the A D A. So he doesn't do. What he does is he does the bend at the 20, and then he does A D A, and then that little lick, the bend. But he does it like Malcolm starts it before Angus, so around then is when Malcolm's doing. When Malcolm starts that, Angus is probably in the bend on the 20, and then he starts off again, but then Angus joins in for the A D A, and then it just repeats. So how many times? Like 3 or 4, maybe 2, but at the end of it, when Bond screams, "If you want blood, you've got it," it's kind of like the chorus. They do the A, but instead of letting it ring, they cut it short, and then they let the G and the D ring, and then Bond screaming, "You got it." And I'm saying around after, like, maybe 5 seconds after he starts saying "got it" or "it," Angus and Malcolm come back in with the main, with the main, riff, but it kind of like starts how it did in the intro. So it's like Angus plays it, and then Malcolm. But it's kind of like different because in the intro, there's like Angus did the A. And then Malcolm did the main riff twice, but before Angus came in again. But in this kind of like interlude section, Angus so they both do the A that starts off the riff, and they only do that for like, and they do that the same thing again for the next riff. Still cutting it short, but on the 3rd time, Angus lets it rip. And then on the 3rd time, he also, does the A again on the G. And then on the 4th time, you really start hyping it up. But something you should know is that, while Malcolm and Angus are doing the outro riff, well, technically not outro, like on the recording it fades out with Angus doing a solo. But when they do it live, there's another riff. But so recording wise, this like it's kind of like another chorus, but they switch it up. So instead of doing they do the main riff while they're singing "If You Want Blood, You've Got It." But they add something. They add the 2 Gs. Or wait. No. Well, they add a G. So in the main riff there used to only be 2 Gs, but now there's 3, and it's because it's like more chorusy. But so it's like so it's A D A D G G G D. So they A D A D G G G D. So that's basically the only difference. Don't forget to cut it short as well. And so that's like the outro. Well, not exactly, but I guess you can say it is. And then it's the outro. Yeah, there's the outro song. So all that really is, it starts off with a bend on the 15th fret on the B, and then you do 13 on the B, and then 14, and then you do 14 on the G, and then you do some oblique bends. Wait. I think they're oblique bends. So, well, before you do the oblique bends, you do 14, 16 on the G, and then you just, bend, kind of like a half step bend on the G, on the 16th on the G, then you grab the 17th on the B, and then you do that like a few times, maybe like 4, and then you just you do 16 on the D and G. Like it's not a double stop. You just play it, so you do that twice, and then on the third time you start off with the 16 on the D, and then you go to 14 on the G, and then you do this kind of like you hit the 16 on the G twice while bending. Wait, no, you hit it once. And then yeah, so you bend it, and then you grab the 17 on the high E and 17 on the B, and then you hit the bend. You hit the bend 16 on the G again, and then you hit it again and bring it, and you release it, and then you play the 17 on the high E again, and then you bend it again, and then it just repeats. Just do it twice, and then on the second time you kind of did what we did before. So it's shorter. It's just 16 on the 16 on the D, and then 16 on the G, and you do that once, and then 16 on the D, and then 14 on the G. And then after this, I kind of like improvised or did it by ear, but what I normally do is so that's basically just a double stop, kind of like like a bluesy type thing, a power chord when you add in something to it. So all that is. So double stops at the 17th fret on the G and the B. So you strum them twice, and on the third time you put your finger on the 19th fret on the G string, and you strum it like you strum both the G and the B at the same time. I do that like what, 4 or 5 times, and on like the 6th or 5th time, I break it off into a solo. So you double stops, then 19 on the G. Then from that 19 on the G, you bend over those oblique bends. So bending 17, you grab the, no my bad, 19, you grab the 20th fret on the B, so 19G, 20B. You do that like four times, and on the 5th time you don't grab the 20. And then after that, just do 17, 20, and then bending on the 20 a couple times, and then same thing on the height. You can do a bit of pull-offs from the 20 to the 17 if you want. Then just bending. Then I don't know if they did this on the recording, but I think it sounds good. And just bending on the 22nd fret of the height. So on the recording it just fades out, but live what they do is that after the solo, what I normally do, so that's just like that bridge interlude section. It letting chords ring A, B, A, D, A, D, A. And you do that twice, and then on the second time you really pull it. Make it like a whole step bend on the 3rd fret of the A string. If you want, you can maybe improvise a solo. Then you end it with that A, or you could just tremolo pick it. Or what I normally do is I just end it. Gotta hold the bend for a while though. And that's If You Want Blood, You've Got It. I hope you enjoyed it, and please let me know in the comments below if this was a good lesson, and if it helped you learn the song, and I hope I'll see you again.